my parents have this painting at their house, and it's of a clown or a court jester or something. And I always look at it when I go home, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately because his eyes are heavy, he's exhausted, he's sort of slouched over on one hand with clearly, you wouldn't describe it as anything else but a sad face, I guess. And if you look at the bottom, it's like he's almost like sitting at a desk. And at the bottom, he's holding a mask. And the mask has a smiley face. But he doesn't have a smile on his face. This is my first solo episode. And I wanted it to be quiet. Not motivational, not like pumping you up for the new year or anything like that. Not a reset. Just honest and holding space for everything that we've all experienced this year. If it just feels like the same feelings followed you across the calendar from one day to the next, that's perfectly normal. Why should there be this expectation that just because the year changes, that all of a sudden you're healed? I think grievers especially, we can put pressure on ourselves to say, okay, by this date, I'm going to be healed. And I don't have to be the one to tell you that grief's not linear. I think most of us have an awareness of that. It's still hard. It's still incredibly challenging. So I want you to know that nothing's wrong with you, and that this episode is not about fixing anything. It's just about telling the truth and being honest with ourselves and our feelings. So this painting of the sad clown really gets me. Like when I was a kid, I would look at it and I would think, oh, that's funny. It's a clown, and he's not smiling. The clown is frowning, and he's holding a mask, and he's smiling. It's funny because it's ironic, because he should be smiling because he's a clown. But now as an adult, I look at that and I just go, that's grief. That's grief. I feel it so viscerally. I feel just the weight of what this person is going through, or what they have gone through. And this idea that we have to mask our grief, or rather put a mask on to cover our grief and go into work, show up for others, pay our bills, still do all the normal things. And underneath this mask, we're broken. The clown is doing, or the jester, whatever he is doing what so many of us do. So as an adult, and even as a child, it's so relatable when I look at that. And I think of the times where I've had to go to work where I wasn't in a place to. I think heartbreak is an interesting one. Speaking of relational heartbreak, the death of a relationship. I feel it's so interesting because there's no real understanding, I feel, by others to just be like, hey, yeah, take all the time you need. Don't worry about coming in. We're expected to go into work, even with death loss. You're expected to go into work. It's this painting is, I just think it's so relatable because we have this expectation to put this mask on, this metaphorical mask, to make it appear as if we're okay. Not even that. In this painting, it's the mask is a smile. So it's more than okay is the expectation that you're supposed to be thriving even. And underneath all of that is grief and possibly a version of yourself that you don't recognize anymore. And exhaustion of wearing the mask day in and day out. And you just want to take it off like how you see in this painting, and just release everything. I think a lot of people, myself included, learned how to function prior to learning how to feel, like feel emotions, for example. And so our inclination is to, oh, sorry, I apologize for crying. Try to hold back tears. Try to not feel your feelings. But we never really knew how to feel those feelings first. And so it makes it incredibly complicated going into public spaces or the workspace for like I was mentioning. So getting back to the new year, a lot of times a new year doesn't feel like a new year exactly. It just feels like another year. It doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like a continuation. And I want to be very clear about this. It doesn't mean that you failed at anything. It just means you're human and you have the capacity to love and you have the capacity for deep love. And when something's taken away from us, when something's removed from our lives, why should we be expected to be this bright, new, amazing person? I remember when I was making Meet Me Where I Am, one of the ladies in the film, Stacey Gonzalez, said people would always talk to her about the New Year's. And she said, no, it's not a new year for me. It's just another year. It's another year with that grief. And I wish I knew what your grief was going to be like this year. I don't know what my grief is going to be like this year. But I do know that it's going to be different. That's the only thing I know, is that it's going to be some different shape than it was before. And I'm going to carry it maybe in a different way. Other than that, I don't know. And that's hard. At the same time, if anyone has listened to me talk about this, you've heard this already. But at the same time, I want to make space for the gratitude of all the new things, all the new experiences, all the new people in my life. Both can exist. And what I'm learning is it's not always easy. However, you can have the pain of the past and the gratitude for all the things right now as well. They don't coexist in harmony exactly, but they can coexist. And one doesn't cancel the other out either. You could be experiencing a lot of amazing things this year. Maybe you're in a new relationship. Maybe you got a new job. Maybe you won the lottery. I don't know. But I don't want you to put pressure on yourself into feeling like, because I have this new, wonderful, amazing experience, that should wipe out my grief and I should not have the grief anymore. I think I've gotten wrapped up in that before, thinking like, oh, if I have this new experience that I want and enjoy and I'm grateful for, that somehow that'll cancel out the pain of the past. And it doesn't really work that way, even though it's somewhat logical to think that. I don't know, especially if you're thinking of like new relationships or friendships, but, or even like I do musicals sometimes. So maybe I audition for a musical and I don't get it, but then I audition for another one and I do get it. And it's like, oh, cool. I'm really grateful for this new opportunity, but I'm still bummed that I didn't get the role of the other one because I wanted that too. So I don't know. That's on a little different scale, I would say, but you can kind of compare that to grief, I guess. Something we don't talk about enough, but again, if you've listened to me at all, you've heard me say it. Anthony Rapp told me this when we were making the film. And I think about it a lot, that we don't talk about grieving ourselves. We don't talk about grieving who we were. So, for example, we're going into a new year. For many of us, it might be a new year without our person. But we're also going into this new year as this new version of us because everything we were to them is gone. Our identity as a husband, a brother, a son, father, brother, sister, whatever. I mean, we don't have that to them anymore because they're gone, we lose part of ourselves with them. And it can be incredibly challenging. I always think of it on the most basic level. You had an inside joke with someone. It was just the two of you had that inside joke. You'll never have that experience with that person again. Some days you'll see something that reminds you of a joke that you had with them, and you want to text them and you just can't. And it's hard. So what do you do? Well, one of the things I like to do is write in my notebook. And that can be helpful too. A lot of times I'll write a letter like as if I'm writing it to them. And in a weird way, I feel like they're hearing it somehow. I think one of the most human things to do is bargaining. Like, if I write this letter, like, will they hear it? Will they know what they meant to me? Going into the new year, you can also have a lot of like guilt, feeling that, still grieving that version of you that had more energy or was more optimistic to do certain things. And I'm sure that you've heard like, oh, you should be grateful for all the things. It's like, yeah, I've thought that, like chances are I've had those thoughts myself. But it doesn't change it. It doesn't take it away. And then you wonder too, like, how could I be having all these new things and new experiences? How can I have stuff that I'm grateful for and still miss the old version of me so much? Maybe the old version of me was naive or didn't think things like this could happen. I think that's a big thing in grief too. I've heard a lot of people say, I never knew this could happen. I never knew the pain could be this deep. And so again, both can exist. You can still hold space for gratitude and still be grieving this version of you that no longer exists. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You're grieving. And it's incredibly human. It's fundamentally human. So, meeting yourself where you are. We're so good at meeting other people where they are. We're patient, we give grace, we give space, and then somehow we turn around and we give ourselves this deadline. It's like, why are we not meeting ourselves where we're at? I'm always telling people to meet the griever where they're at, but why don't we meet ourselves where we're at? We grieve too. I don't know how to do it sometimes. I don't even know what it means sometimes to meet myself where I am because I don't know what I want. I don't know what to do sometimes for a friend grieving. And then when I'm grieving or having a grief experience, I don't know what I want. I just know I need it to be witnessed. I mean, like, I've had a lot of past grief come up lately, and all I can think of is, I'll be ruminating on this grief, and I'll think like, who can I text? Now, I'm someone that is in this community, this ever-growing grief community. I have all these resources at my fingertips. I have friends who are therapists. I have friends who are authors and experts in this field. People that have had experiences, one would argue far more traumatic than mine, grief nonetheless. And I still find myself not knowing how to meet myself where I am or what I need in those moments. I think oftentimes we feel like our grief is so unique, and it is, but we feel that because it's so unique that there isn't anyone that can possibly understand what we're going through. Now, a part of that is true. I don't think that I can ever fully understand another person's experience. I don't think I can understand your experience. However, I know that it's incredibly painful and hard. And I'm also here. I'm here for you. And I need to be better about being here for myself. I think that meeting yourself where you are doesn't mean giving up on anything. It means telling the truth. It means telling the truth about the grief you're carrying. I think naming it is incredibly helpful. I think part of me feels that my grief perhaps wasn't witnessed enough. I do think grief needs to be witnessed. You know, I tell people all the time, like, talk to me about it. Like, if it's inside of you, don't keep it there. And of course, if you're comfortable sharing it with me, I'm here. This is such a griever thing to say, but I feel like I didn't want to burden others with what I was going through, so I just didn't say anything. Or I said it to very specific people, you know, and then everyone else just didn't know what I was going through. Meeting ourselves where we are means that we don't have to wear the mask all the time. How are you doing? Honestly, not great. And that's okay. If this time of year feels heavy for you, you know, those days between like any time from like, I don't know, I guess you could go back to like any time from Halloween to Thanksgiving to the holidays, you know, Hanukkah, Christmas, all of the holiday season, it's all kind of jam-packed in there, isn't it? Why did we do that? Why did we decide? Wasn't Jesus born in the summer? Like, whatever happened to Christmas in July? Actually, I feel like we need a better summer. Okay, now I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here. My point was, if this time of year feels especially heavy for you, I mean, chances are it probably feels heavy for somebody else too. And that's why I always encourage people to check in on your friends, check in on your loved ones. I'm going to do something a little different here. I want you to think of one person, just one, who might need to hear from you. And if you don't know what to say to them, here's something. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I just wanted to check in. How are you doing? That was easy, right? I can't tell you how many times I wish someone would have texted me that when I was going through everything I was going through. And I'm not attacking anyone here. I just think it's not like we're mad that, you know, well, maybe we could get mad. Anger's part of that whole grief thing, right? You know, I think a lot of times people think that, well, I'm not reaching out. I'm not reaching out. Like they'll reach out to me if they need something, and then we don't. And then ultimately we don't reach out because we don't want to burden them. They don't want to burden us. And then it just becomes this whole thing, and then nobody talks. And so again, I say, I want you to think of one person who might need to hear from you right now. And please just pause this right now and text them and just say, hey, just checking in. I was thinking about you, wanted to see how you're doing. You can also tell them no pressure to respond. Now, chances are they might not respond right away or even ever, but that's not on us. That's not our job. Our job is not to get a response from them. Our job isn't the outcome of that situation. It's the offering. It's the reaching. It's the space that we provide them. Just knowing that somebody else is out there thinking about you, knowing that you might be going through something really hard, can be profoundly helpful. So for the new year, you don't need a resolution. You don't need some plan. You don't need some, I mean, I might make a list anyway. I love making lists. I read a study that said if you make a list, you're something like 80% more likely to actually accomplish what you set out to do on said list. So there is some science behind actually writing it down. That's just me, though. I love lists. But you don't have to do that. Like, don't put any pressure on yourself. Or, hey, if you want to do one little thing, say, tomorrow I'm going to get out of bed and I might take a shower. That's okay if that's all you're doing. That's perfectly normal in grief. Rest counts. Survival counts. Honesty counts. Maybe we can all just be honest with ourselves in the new year. And if all you can do right now is show up as you are, that's more than enough. I think part of meeting ourselves where we are is being honest with ourselves about where we are and not having to wear the mask all the time. Just meet yourself right where you are.